everyone to the Mindful Magazine channel. Today I have with me Armin Brott. Thank you so much for coming on my channel today.
My pleasure, Michelle.
Yes, for everyone out there, I'm going to do a small introduction. Armin is an author, and he has 10 best-selling books in which he helps men all over the world on becoming a father as they want to be. And also, he's a columnist, a blogger, he has his own radio show, and he is an international speaker. So amazing that you're here. Could you tell me a little bit more about yourself? And I'm really curious to know, what was your journey towards writing your first book? How did that go?
Well, it started off the way I think a lot of things start off, is I was really very unhappy with the way things were when I was not even a father yet. My then wife was pregnant with our first one, and there were no resources, there were no books, there were no magazines, there was really nothing there at all for me, and I really wanted some information. And then I had some experiences. I could tell you the stories if you want, but had some experiences that really kind of pushed me towards seeing that dads needed some support that they weren't getting, and ultimately started writing the books that I wish I would have had at the time. And didn't have, but I had to write them, and so then they've become quite successful, and it's set me on a whole different path. I was working in business and doing businessy kinds of things, and now I'm not.
Okay, wow. And what was the experience? Because you told me there was an experience and that led you to writing the book. Could you tell me a bit more in detail how that went?
Yeah, I think that it was kind of the experience that I always tell when I'm speaking, because I think it helps people to understand where I was coming from. So I was in a park, yeah, and I was pushing my baby on a swing. Maybe she was 2 years old, not exactly a baby, but a little kid. And right next to me, there was a slide, and a little girl goes walking up to the top of the slide. And instead of going down the slide like she wanted to go, she starts falling backwards and down the stairs. And so she's 3 feet away. I reached over and grabbed her, and I put her down, which is what I would think anybody would do.
Yeah.
And so a woman comes over and picks up this kid and looks at me in a very mean way and says, "Did he hurt you?" And I thought, that's not what I need. I mean, how about you could say thank you, or you could nod, or there are a dozen other things you could do. But the idea that she saw me not as somebody who did something nice for her kid or just a guy in a park, yeah, she saw me as a danger. And I talked to a lot of other guys after that, and I found that there were a lot of people who had similar experiences where they were at a park and their child is running around and falls down and is crying, and then all of a sudden the police are there. Somebody called the police. You think it's people don't do that with women. And I had another kind of experience where with that same child, took her to the bathroom. I don't know if you have Costco, but Costco is a place I love to go to. Costco. She's 2 years old. She can't go to the bathroom by herself, so I took her to into the bathroom with me. And when I come out, the manager of the store is there and says, "If you ever take a girl into the men's bathroom again, we're going to call the police." But are you kidding me? Am I supposed to send her into the bathroom by herself? I mean, if a woman walked into the women's bathroom with a little boy, what are you going to say? You're not going to say anything, because that's what you have to do. And the things like that really got me very angry, but they also got me thinking that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and people need to know more about fathers and how important they are in their children's lives and how important the children are to them. And we need to know as a society what we can do to support dads and help dads. And that's really what I've tried to do in everything that I've written for fathers and about fathers, is really to get people to understand, get the dads to understand how important they are, and get everybody else, the moms and everybody else, to say, yeah, you're right, and we need to do something.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And to be honest, this is something I'm not even thinking about. because men have their own strugglings, but us women, for us, it's so natural. I mean, I don't have kids, but you don't think about issues that men face. We only think about
No.
maybe our issues that we're facing. But I think it's great that you are the first one speaking from a man's perspective on how they are feeling. And I think it's really amazing that you convey this message in your books. So what was the first book that you wrote?
The first one was called The Expectant Father.
Yeah.
And it was all about pregnancy and childbirth, but looking at it from the dad's perspective about what are you going through as a dad, and what are the kinds of things that you're probably thinking about right now when you're 3 months or 4 months or 5 months or 8 months in the pregnancy, and how can you be involved? I mean, it's hard for a guy to be involved. His wife is pregnant, he's not pregnant, but we're still thinking about things. We're concerned about things, we're worried about things, we're excited about things. And it helps to understand that, to know that you're not alone as a guy, but also when you are involved in the pregnancy, and that's by learning about it, by going to the doctor visits, by listening to the heartbeat or looking at the ultrasound, when you get involved that way, it makes you part of it, and it makes you want to be involved later in a greater degree. If you're not involved, if you just ignore the whole thing or say, she's pregnant, we'll leave it up to her, then you're going to be separated from it more later on. And so my goal with that book is to say the process of getting involved as a dad starts before you're a dad, and let's give you the tools and the resources and the support that you need to, as you said in your introduction, to be the kind of a dad that you want to be. And you wouldn't be buying this book or reading this book if somebody else got it for you if you didn't want to be involved.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And you wrote different books for different stages, correct? So every single stage of your books every single book is describing a stage of the child's life. So and there's a series of 10.
Well, it's not exactly a series, but there's the expectant father, then there's one for the first year, then there's the toddler years, and then the school years. So that goes up to age 9. And then there's one for single fathers. Yeah. That happens sometimes. You have to know how to be involved as a single dad, and how to understand what your rights are and your responsibilities are. And then there's one for military fathers, because they have some special issues because they're gone for long periods of time and have to try to figure out how to be involved that way. And then there's one that looks at overall from beginning to end, from the pregnancy through the grandfather years, but looking at it a little bit more from a political perspective, I guess. And then there's one that is looking at the obstacles that men face that keep them from being the kinds of fathers that they want to be. And there are a lot of things. There's political things, there's the men's movement, there's the women's movement, and just looking at a lot of issues that come up and say, here's something you may not have thought about that keeps dads away from their kids. If you just I was thinking about this morning about commercials, television commercials. I don't know what it's like in Malta, but here a lot of television commercials, the dads in the commercials, but also in television programs, they're idiots. They can't do anything right. They're just another kid, and the kids always go to the mom if they want real information or they want help, and that doesn't help. It shows dads as idiots, and that's not what they are. But it also makes dads who watch that in a strange way. It makes them think to themselves, I don't know that I want to do this. People are just going to make fun of me, and we know how that works. I think in some European countries, they're saying, we can't have models who are underweight because that shows girls the wrong messages about how they need to look. Yeah. So, we understand that people are influenced by media messages. And if we allow that to happen, and it's the same thing with dads, as dads are influenced and other people are influenced about dads, as you keep showing them as idiots and you think that they're idiots. Yeah, and maybe it's the expectations that people have are quite low, and they want to exceed, or they feel so insecure, want to exceed these expectations, but there's so many insecurities coming up.
Because a lot of times it is kind of the concept, and you're right. I mean, here I'm not watching television. I'm originally from the Netherlands, so we have a lot of commercials there, and it's indeed, it's quite similar. Like children mostly are related to the mothers and not to the fathers. And I mean, it's something you do together. So it's you do that together as partners, and you grow them up together. So yeah, I think it's really mind-blowing to listen to this, because it's something that in daily life no one really speaks about. It's really hidden. And I think especially when men do not talk about their feelings so easily, it's not really being solved as well.
No, I don't think so. So when I first started off 20 years ago, I thought, when my kids grow up and they have their own kids, I won't have to worry about this. Well, I'll have
How many kids do you have, by the way?
Three.
Three. Okay.
But they're old enough to have their own families. Two of them anyway, are 28 and 25. But they don't. I'm lucky I'm not a grandfather yet. I'm happy about that. But they, the problems are still there, unfortunately. I think it's getting a little bit better. There's a lot more men who are getting involved. There's a lot more dads who are we call them stay-at-home dads, who the mother is working and the dad is the one who's at home. That's getting a little bit more common. But there's still these ideas that we have, the stereotypes, and they're very limiting. I mean, stereotypes are limiting to women in that we think that they need to look or behave or do things in a certain way. And we have the same messages for men, is that you have to go to work, you have to be the provider protector, you have to be strong. Big boys don't cry, you can't show any weakness. And that doesn't help anybody.
No. And what, because you're coaching as well, what are the main insecurities that you've seen in men in your coaching sessions?
Well, the questions that I get are, it's interesting, they're almost all the same as the questions that I was getting 20 years ago. There are a few things that are a little bit different. People want to know about technology and is it okay for my baby to play with an iPad? Things that nobody would have heard about 20 years ago. But a lot of it is, I've never had anything to do with babies. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. How do I start building a relationship with this? And then there's questions about money. Are we going to be able to afford this? Questions about the relationship with the wife, because it's changing or it's going to change, or I don't like the way that it's changing. What do I do? Or just things about discipline. She wants to do this and I want to do that. And that's the way that I grew up, and that's the way that she grew up. And how do we figure things out? I mean, they're basic questions. A lot of it is what is my role? What does it mean to be a dad these days? And how do I do that in the best way possible?
Oh, yeah.
Especially for people. Oh, good.
Sorry. No, continue.
I was going to say, especially for people who did not have a very good experience with their own father.
Yeah.
They may think, well, I don't want to be like my dad, and I'm afraid that I'm going to be anyway. How do I not do that? And that's a very important thing. And then from guys in the military, partly because of that book, but the questions are still the same. Is when I left home to go to be on a military deployment for a year, my wife was pregnant. I'm going to come home to a baby I've never met before. How do I stay involved with this? Or when I came home, my kids don't want to have anything to do with me, and that's sad. But how do I do that? Well, a lot of it is, how do I do whatever it is to be a better dad?
No, that's really great. And I think sometimes, because especially in the Mindful magazine, we talk a lot of times about mindfulness or about awareness. Because a lot of times people have things hidden as well, and you have to kind of talk about it to become aware, and then to solve the situation or to make it the best way possible. And also, how did you start writing this book? Did you do some research? Did you had some help in the process? Because I can imagine when you started, you needed to create this knowledge, and over the years you build it up, and you're where you are today. And
well, I'm obsessed about research, and so what I did is I read everything I could, and there wasn't very much to read. And so I went to the psychology libraries at UC Berkeley, which was very close to my house, and pretty much moved in there for a few months. And there were a lot of articles in journals that nobody ever reads, but scientific journals and psychological journals that talked a little bit about dads every once in a while, or talked about the importance of fathers. And yeah, but I'll tell you, as I began to look at this, I started looking at research all the way back to the 40s and 50s. And one of my favorite articles, and every time I think about it, I start laughing. The title of one of the first articles that ever talked about fathers was from 1954. Yeah. And it was called "Fatherhood as a Precipitant of Mental Illness." You think, okay,
wow. Okay.
So you have a kid and you go crazy, which is probably true in some ways, but this is a scientific journal. And
scientific.
Then, yeah, it was a medical journal, and it was looking at that. And yeah, you look at it now, 50 years later, 60 years later, it was funny. But I mean, it's funny now, I think. But so there wasn't a huge amount. But I started looking, and I would find an article, and then I would call up the person who wrote the article and get some more information. And so all of the books, I do huge amounts of research and read everything and spend lots and lots of time looking. I mean, I find it fascinating. And what I like to do is take the information that researchers have done and help people to understand that, yeah, this is what people say, and that, this is what works, and it's important for you to be involved. And that I found things that I thought were, I think I went into it with some stereotypes about maybe mothers, maybe they are more naturally suited for caregiving, or maybe they are just naturally better. But it turns out there was one study by a guy named Ross Park, and he and I ended up writing a book together. He was one of my mentors in this whole thing. And he found that when they do studies of fathers and mothers, and they have bottles, they're both feeding their babies with bottles. Dads, they pick up babies, they hold the babies, they coo, they play, they giggle, they feed the babies exactly the same amount as mothers. Yeah. And what happens is that the dads generally go back to work, and they don't learn the skills, and moms stay at home more. They're more likely to stay at home with the babies. And so they learn the things. They learn what that cry means, or this cry means, or they have a sense of it. And it's not that you're naturally better at it. It's on-the-job training. It's practice. It's being there. That's the only way you're going to learn.
Yeah, I mean, if I would get a baby now, I have no clue what to do. So I think I can say as a woman, I wouldn't know what to do either. I would just think, I would
call me.
Likewise.
Call me, I'll tell you.
And also, what do you think about the Western world now, and how children are raised, and the roles of women and men nowadays?
Oh, it's a mess. The whole thing is a mess. I think that we do a terrible job of socializing boys and girls. I see it. My youngest daughter's in high school, and when I drop her off at school, there are some girls, probably about half of the girls, are wearing clothing that I think is completely inappropriate. I mean, it's too much. I mean, I understand people should be able to wear what they want to wear, but you shouldn't be wearing something that is incredibly revealing, or shorts that you can hardly see, or things like that. And so, but we've somehow told girls that in order for them to be happy or to be attractive or whatever, that they need to dress like that. Yeah. And we tell boys that they have to be tough, and they have to be strong, and they can't cry, and they can't, if they hurt themselves, they have to play through it. That's the big phrase here, or man up, that kind of thing. And I think it's terrible to do that. And we don't give people the opportunity to be what they want to be. Yeah. And we get upset, or people get upset if a boy plays with dolls, or if a girl plays with trucks, or we're less likely to argue if girls do something different than if boys do something different. And I think that's not a good thing. And there's the Me Too movement here, which is something I'm not sure if it's gone beyond our borders.
Oh yeah, it did.
I mean, I think it's wonderful in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
that it's making people aware that, no, you know what, you can't treat people like that. That's just not okay.
Yeah.
Well, what's happening, I just finished a book I co-wrote with somebody about in business.
Yeah.
And we were looking at research, and we're finding that some men in executives, they don't want to mentor a young woman because they're afraid that somebody might say something, or they don't want to be alone in a room with her because they're afraid that she's, not that it's necessarily her, but that somebody could look at that and think, oh, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
And I think that's terrible, that the mentoring is not going to be happening in the same way. So I think we've gone a little bit crazy with gender roles, and we're not asking why, I think, is the biggest thing. I mean, I have these questions with my kids. We just sort of assume, oh, somebody did something, oh, I know what that is, instead of saying, why did you do that? I don't understand that. And having a conversation about it. And it would be so much nicer for me personally, but I think for everybody else, if we spent more time learning a little bit more about what's going on, rather than just assuming that we know and then acting and saying, well, oh, you said that, you must be a bad person.
Yeah. It's we're labeling a little bit nowadays. I think there's so many labels to everyone. As long as you have a label, because people you cannot place, people are a bit afraid of that. Oh, we just must give a label. And at the same time, it's getting a bit crazy. I think the messages are, they go through the internet, they go everywhere. So if one person has a bad experience and some situation looks close to that, it could be confused. And I think it's indeed important to know both sides of what are your intentions, what were my intentions, what are we talking about. But at a certain point, this can go so far that everyone starts analyzing and what is right and what is wrong, instead of just being who you are and living. And that's basically why I have my channel, because I want to encourage everyone to be themselves. So we don't really have to act differently or dress up a certain way, or for everyone to embrace themselves and their emotions, because then
no, that's good. I mean, that's a great attitude, and it would be wonderful if people had it. Instead of, because what happens here, I'm in California, which is very liberal, and then I'm in Northern California, which is especially liberal, and people here have a tendency to say, oh, anybody who doesn't believe what I believe is an idiot.
Yeah.
I don't want to have anything to do with them. You think that really is rather immature. Yeah. And if you look at the news in this country, there's Fox News, which tends to be conservative, and there's CNN, which tends to be liberal, and you watch the two programs, and they're talking about exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's like the story of the 5 blind men. Have you ever heard this 5 blind men and an elephant?
No, I haven't heard it. No.
Oh, it's really a parable of so there's 5 blind men, and they're all trying to describe an elephant. And so one of the blind men is going, and he goes along, and he finds the leg, and he says, "Oh, an elephant is like a tree."
Yeah.
And then another one finds the trunk of the elephant, and he says, "Oh, an elephant is like a snake."
Yeah.
And another one, finds the ear and says, "Oh, an elephant is like a blanket that it blows around." And you can see that like everybody has a different view, but they only see this tiny little bit, and that's all they see of the whole world, and they think that the whole world sees the same thing. It's very frustrating, because as a father, as a person generally, but also as a father, is I want my kids to be able to listen to other people they don't agree with, because I think that's where you learn things, is by listening to things you don't agree with. If all you hear is things that you agree with, you're going to just get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah. It's always good to hear everyone's story, and then you pick a little bit of everything. I always say I listen to everyone. Everyone has their own story, and you pick the things like, oh, that's interesting, because we cannot know everything ourselves. If we think we know it all, what are we doing here?
We're in serious trouble if we think we know it all. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And going back to the parenting,
okay.
What can you recommend men out there who are expecting a baby? How can they prepare themselves?
Well, I think, of course, they should read my book, would be the first thing.
That's number one.
They could look at the website of mrdad.com. There's lots of resources and podcasts and all sorts of things. So learning...
I'll put the link for you on the Mindful magazine as well, so they can access it directly.
Okay, so learning is the most important thing. I think that the more you know about it, the better you're going to be. So if you know, even if you don't read my book, read the books that she has and learn about what's going on. That's the most important thing. Go to all of the doctor visits. That's very, very important. And get a little piece of paper or a notebook and write down questions that you have and ask the questions. Because unfortunately, when the guys go, the doctors and the nurses tend to only pay attention to mom. Yeah. So it's important that you say, hey, hello, I've got a question. And then they'll begin to take you seriously if they see that you're there. So learning and making sure that you're get answers to your questions. And then as soon as the baby comes, you have to just say, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea, but I'm going to do something. The chances are pretty good that you're going to do something that's a good thing. Most people do stupid things. You know, you think about what you're doing. So get involved. And the only way that girls are better at these things, if they are better, is because we talked about before, they have more practice. And so the only way that you're going to get good at being a dad is by making a lot of mistakes. Yeah. So start making mistakes. Yeah. Have fun, make mistakes, do everything wrong. What's the worst thing that happens is you put a diaper on backwards and everything falls off. And you do laundry and you don't do that again next time. You learn. Yeah. It's true. We all have to make mistakes. If we don't make the mistakes, we cannot learn. And I mean, how can you be ever ready to be a parent? It's always, maybe you see it around you, maybe you see kids around you growing up, but I think having your own kid is such a different experience, and you're with the baby 24/7 at the beginning. Yeah. No, I think it's, everybody thinks that they know how to do it until they have kids, and then you realize, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. And some of it will sound familiar, what you've read. And this is like, I tell the guys I teach classes for expectant fathers too, and say, you know, you don't have a baby right now, and we'll talk about a lot of stuff, and this will come back to you when you have your baby, but it's going to be a different thing for everyone. Yeah. And if you waited until you were 100% ready, nobody would have any kids. Yeah. We can never be ready. With everything we do in life, we can never be ready enough. I mean, it's just jumping off the cliff and see where you land. Yeah. So you do the best you can do. Yeah. And you know, that already is a good thing. If you do the best you can do, you want to try. You try to do the best instead of don't leave it up to somebody else. Yeah. And for the dads is to understand that you're going to do things differently than the mom is going to do things. Yeah. You have to understand that both of those are important. And babies who grow up with what moms have, what moms provide, and what dads provide, they're better than if you just do what the mom is. And as the dad, if you listen to what the mom tells you to do, that's good, because she probably knows some things. But if you only listen and only do what she tells you to do, you're going to be mommy's little helper instead of being daddy who has his own relationship. Yeah. And you know, if you want to, there's a wonderful metaphor for the differences between fathers and mothers is if you go to a park, where I'm sure that they have them everywhere, parks where there are lots of parents with babies in packs,
Yeah.
Most of the time you see that the moms have the babies facing in
Yeah.
and the dads have the babies facing out.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Now you're saying
And it's
that.
very interesting that the dads are saying, look at the world. There's trees to climb and let's go learn some stuff. And the moms are saying, we'll take care of you. And it's not that the dads aren't going to take care of you. And of course, moms are going to tell their babies to climb trees. But there's just a difference. It's that we're mentoring. This is what we want. We want to teach. We want to show them how to do things. And there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes that means jumping up and down on the bed. And sometimes that means running around the house and doing crazy things. And that's okay. It's okay. Not all the time, but it's okay. And the things that the moms want to do that are a little bit quieter, those are great too.
Yeah.
And, that's a stereotype, obviously, but it tends to play out that way, is that dads tend to be more physically involved and moms tend to be a little quieter. Both of them are great, and it would be great if dads did the mom things and moms did the dad things, but you have to take advantage of what there is.
Yeah, that's true. And I think every child should have a bit of both, because we both have different experiences to bring. So why not balance it out and take a bit of both? And I don't think we can ever compare women with men. We're completely different beings and different thoughts, and there's a reason that we're different, because that means together you are better balanced and you can provide a bit of both.
Well, there's also the role modeling part of it, which is so important, is that for dads, you're talking about gender roles and things like that in society. It's so important for dads to show their sons how to behave, that they need to show their sons that you can be masculine, you can be manly, and you can be a man. That doesn't mean you go out and beat people up. It means that there are many things you can do. You can hold a baby, you can change a baby, you can be soft and when you need to be. And then you're also showing girls, you're showing your daughters that, this is the kind of behavior you should expect from a boyfriend or men in your life, not some of the stuff that you read on TV. And the same thing that moms can show their sons, that this is how you treat a woman, or this is how you should expect to be treated. You shouldn't be pushed around if you don't like that. And the moms should show their daughters that this is how you can dress. And this is, it's so important for both sides, is that boys learn from their moms and from their dads, and girls learn from their moms and from their dads. And we need to understand how important we are, and you can't just leave it to somebody else, because it won't get done right.
No, it's true. We really have to, I think it's also a bit of just do it how you feel, like how you feel it is right for you. I think there's never really guidelines on how to do things perfectly. It's just showing a bit of yourself and trying to get the best out of your child and raise them the best you can.
Yeah.
And can we expect more books from you?
Oh, I don't think I know how to do anything else, so I'm still working on books. I do because the books have been out for a while. I'm always updating them.
Yeah.
So just a year ago, I did a big update of the Expectant Father and the first year book, and I'm working on a big overhaul of the toddler years book. So that's going to be coming out next year.
Yeah.
And I think I have to start working on one on teenagers. I haven't done that one yet. That's one little area I keep thinking it's.
That's a complicated one.
Yeah, but it's important. So I think that's going to come sometime soon.
Okay, amazing. And you also have you're also running a radio show.
Yeah, I do a radio show. It's on a bunch of stations in the United States, and in San Francisco and Texas and other places, but it's also on what's called the American Forces Network, which is about 400 stations, all of the U.S. military bases and embassies all around the world. So it reaches a military audience. So it's nice. It's about positive parenting.
Yeah. So it's about discussions. Do you have discussions with people, or how did the show form itself?
Oh, the show started when I did an interview with somebody in a radio station in San Francisco, when the very first book came out, The Expectant Father. And she said, after we talked, she said, "Oh, you have kind of a nice, relaxed voice on the radio. Have you ever thought about doing a radio show?" And I said, "No, never thought about it." She said, "Why don't you come back and we'll put together a demo." And so we did, and that was 22 years ago, I think.
Oh, wow. And it's still running.
Still going. And then,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
and then
amazing.
after my military book came out, I talked to the people at the American Forces Network and said, you know, the people listen to the network, they're parents and they need parenting information, and I know how to do that stuff. So they said, okay. So that was 5 or 6 years ago, and I've been doing that ever since. So there's 2 versions of the show. There's one that's for a little bit more military focused, and one that's a little bit more, that also has the same parenting but had extra pieces.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I can imagine when you're out there in the military and you're missing so much from home, that it can be very difficult to deal with your emotions about your kid. You can miss the growth of your kid. You know, it's becoming a year older and you're missing a whole year. How do you deal with that? So I think this radio show is really needed.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I mean, I get to learn a lot. It's probably the best part about it for me is I talk to, like you, I'm talking to authors or different experts in different fields, and we just have a conversation, and I always finish up and think, wow, I didn't know that, which is good. I like that. I like the part where I don't know anything and then I learn something.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think that's the beautiful thing of having conversations with strangers, and everyone bringing their own opinions on the table, and I think it's great. I mean, yeah. I can see it as well with my interviews. I'm learning so much already from you today, because you don't realize the struggles of a man, because I'm not at that stage yet. But now, after speaking to you, I can take that into account, you know, and maybe ask more questions in the future. So it's always very helpful to speak to different people and their expertise, because there's always a learning process in it.
Yeah, there is. There always is. Yeah.
Okay, well, do you have maybe, because always in the end, I'm asking everyone to maybe give one big tip on how to deal with your struggles as a father.
Oh, well, I think we talked about it a little bit before. I think the most important thing is to not be afraid to make mistakes. Okay. That's where the confidence and the competence is going to come from, is by just doing it. And you have to trust yourself that what you do is going to be okay. If you have some questions, obviously ask questions. Yeah. But the most important thing is to be in there and get involved and start doing things. That your kids need you, and the kids don't really care what you do, just as long as you're there. And it's by being there and by being involved that you learn who the kids are, and you learn more about what they need from you. But you got to start someplace, and you got to start as early as you possibly can.
That's amazing. I think that's very helpful for everyone out there. So for everyone who's watching, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more upcoming videos, you can subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much, Armin, for your time.
Thank you, Michelle.
Really, I'm really happy I've spoken to you. And I'm pretty sure after this interview, you inspired a lot of men out there, and also women
That'll be good.
Yeah, you inspire them to think about be a bit more considerate with men and their feelings and parenting. Yes, hopefully that's true. And hopefully more dads will get involved. But thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it. Yeah, you're welcome. I wish you a great day. You too. Bye. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.